the Suns will now have matched up with the Los Angeles Lakers 3 separate times, counting today. And they have some interesting things going on tape. And I just wanted to kind of dive into some of it and break down some of what's been going on in the matchup from a Suns perspective. So let's go ahead and dive into the film. This first play here, first set of plays, we're going to be talking about Kevin Durant and looking at how they defended him in his post touches specifically. So as we let this one kind of flow through, we see, first of all, before anything else, Grayson Allen getting off the ball and the Suns enabling Yusuf Nurkic as the entry passer for Kevin Durant's post touches. Now, obviously, Devin Booker wasn't available in any of these games. However, the Suns have still, even with Devin Booker on the floor at times, enabled Nurkic to be that connecting piece and making these entry passes to Kevin Durant and allowing for Devin Booker to space one pass away potentially after Nurkic cuts through or space into the second side. Just manipulating the spacing even more and also using and optimizing Nurkic to where he's been in a position of being a true factor in plays. And I just love this process from them. And as we let it flow through more, we already see on the catch, Anthony Davis is splitting his man between the ball and the basket. And as we see them communicate and we see them just re-space the Suns and watch the Lakers also re-alter their defense, look at the overload and help. This is the type of help that Kevin Durant is going to be seeing on every single post touch rather in this game tonight. And it's going to be on the Suns to be better with their spacing. This is solid. We got an early cut from Josh Okogie here. Nurkic clearing out to the opposite side. Just them being consistent with their process and spacing and enabling Kevin Durant as many passing angles as possible to manipulate is going to be important. And obviously, like I mentioned with Okogie, finding those pockets to cut in with IQ and with feel to move the defense and make them adjust and shift around a paint touch. And we're going to see him here be patient. He's going to find a skip to the second side after the cut from Okogie, and that's going to enable a closeout opportunity for Jordan Goodwin to get into. And Goodwin's going to be able to finish there. Goodwin's had a handful of good games against the Lakers, a handful of good minutes, rather, against the Lakers in this series. And he's going to need to continue to do things like this in tonight's game. And then here we got another Laker overload and help on a Durant post touch. We're going to notice, first of all, initially, we're going to see it's Gabe Vincent who's overloading as a low help. And then we're going to see on the catch as they reestablish themselves and the Suns re-space. Look at the exchange here between Hayes on the baseline right here with Vincent. He's going to switch, put a bigger body as that overload and help defender underneath the basket here on the baseline. And then look at how the Suns kind of re-space out of that. That's going to enable a mismatch here that they're conceding at the nail as we see this little curl cut here from Eubanks, which is a smart one. And then we see the Suns just kind of playing within that space. Durant letting the dust settle on the soft double team that they're sending, finding a pocket to operate in as a scorer. See a quick one-dribble pull-up, and that's money. But I just want to also pay attention to the details here, looking at the Suns spacing. They're not getting into too much movement, doing just enough to create an angle if Kevin Durant did decide to make a pass. Obviously, on this play here, it's LeBron James splitting two, and that's going to be a risky pass either way if he tried to skip it. And we already got somebody occupying the middle of the floor with this curl cut here from Eubanks, which was smart. So Durant astutely just goes and gets into his bag as a scorer, and he's able to pull up and knock that down. And this was important to hear as we hear Darvin Ham, coach of the Lakers, speaking to exactly what they're trying to do defensively and what they can do mostly to kind of just mitigate some of the
Field Durant on 130 through 3 quarters here. What can you do defensively to try and slow him down?
Just keep crowding them, keep showing them bodies, and being active on the backside.
All right, and that's exactly what they did on all of Durant's post touches, coming from the paint, sending help from the baseline specifically in that overloading structure. And just one last thing with Durant, the Suns need to find ways to do outside of the stagnant touches that he typically gets, and he's able to obviously be an all-time great scorer off of that, but to ease the burden on him and get the Lakers defense moving and rotating a little bit more, get them into their movement actions, their zoom actions, the handoff variations, all of those things, kind of keeping a healthy blend of all of these and keeping Durant on the move to give him some dynamic touches on the move and kind of put pressure on the paint and use his scoring advantage for what he can be. And I'm going to see that on this play as we see him reject into the post. And then we see, as we mentioned earlier, with the overload and help, that Darvin Ham was talking about, showing them bodies and just trying to make life tough on them. And then we're going to see, ultimately, it's going to be Eubanks getting into a drive, paint touch. That's going to end up with another drive and another paint touch. And this is the flow that the Suns need to operate in off of the Durant post touches. And then here is what I was getting to as far as the movement. Just getting him into these slight actions where he can be a moving target of sorts and be able to use his versatility on offense past just the stagnant touches is going to be extremely important. And seeing a healthy blend of these things, especially with Devin Booker on the floor, but even more so when Booker's off the floor, is going to be important. And as we kind of speak to Devin Booker, it's a perfect segue. The Suns obviously were without him in these games, and that pretty much conceded drop coverage to everybody. And the Lakers were not the best in terms of their point of attack defense, and the Suns were able to get into the paint and get paint touches and play off of that with their guards like Eric Gordon, Josh Okogie, Jordan Goodwin, and especially Grayson Allen in addition to Eric Gordon, like I mentioned, to start this. As we see here, it's a passive drop coverage. It's not seeing any extra help from anybody else around the play, and they're just essentially letting them play in that cushion without having to worry about hand help too much. And part of that can be the spacing, especially on this rep from the Suns, but generally speaking, whenever the Suns guards were able to get past their initial defender, a paint touch was inevitable. And when the guards were able to play off of the paint touches, specifically and primarily Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen, great things came from it, whether that be a shot for themselves like here from Eric Gordon or a paint touch like here from Jordan Goodwin that's going to net him an opportunity at the free throw line as he rejects in Spain as we revert it here. You can kind of see him just putting pressure on the paint. And then there's other plays, like I mentioned, with Grayson Allen, just beating his man at the point of attack, even with no screen, getting a paint touch, and either playing off of the rotating defense from there or obviously scoring for himself, and even more so with the pick involved, being able to just play in that cushion that drop coverage is being conceded. However, when Devin Booker is in the mix, obviously things get different for this Suns team. With him on the floor this season, they're at 125.3 points per 100 possessions. That is the best offense operation-wise. That would be operating as the best offense in the NBA. And that number drops down to 113 in rating on offense, which would tie for 19th with Charlotte this season when Devin Booker is off the floor. And even more so, that's a tick below what their team average is in defensive rating of 114 this season. So you can see the imbalance and just how things shift and alter when Devin Booker is not on the floor versus when he is on the floor. So taking all of the context from the guards that I just spoke to and what was being conceded coverage-wise and their abilities to get past their initial defenders against the Lakers, that all gets an uptick with Devin Booker on the floor, and that's also going to force the Lakers to play more versatile coverage past just being up at the level of the screen and sending double teams to Kevin Durant in the post. Devin Booker is shooting 39% on 4.5 or close to 5 pull-ups this season per game. And that's obviously going to just generally garner more attention at the point of the screen, which is going to create advantages for the Suns to play out of from there. And Devin Booker's playmaking, as well as his efficiency with the ball in his hands in terms of not turning the ball over, the Suns are better per 100 possessions with the ball in their hands. They're 4 times better, actually, in terms of keeping up with the ball and just being better with their ball security. So watching the dynamic that he brings to the fold is going to be important to see, and how it kind of shifts and alters things from how the Lakers defended the Suns in this season series so far. And then here, speaking to LeBron James, looking at him in pick and roll, a lot of times they were giving him switches a little bit, but more often than not, they were giving him unders. And he would take those unders and stretches and knock down the pull-up threes and just use the leverage to get downhill at times. So just kind of seeing how they decide to defend him, especially with KBD likely getting the start. So giving him a little bit more single coverage, which was typically what they were doing until he got going, and then sending double teams from the baseline on his post-ups, kind of like we're going to see here a little bit, is what they were getting into. So you can see as on the post-up here, he's engaged. He's got Nas Little on him, and you can see Jordan Goodwin 2-9 underneath the basket. Ultimately, he's going to cross the help line, and then we're going to see threatening to cross the help line, rather, and then we're going to see Kevin Durant get into the passing lane here, get a deflection. And this is the beauty of having Kevin Durant. Not necessarily always having him be the low man, because in these scenarios, he's going to be sending a double team. So having somebody active like Jordan Goodwin and allowing for KD to be the sink man and just kind of playing two and getting that first pass out of there and doing so with a 7'5", 7'6" wingspan is going to allow for the Suns to just keep themselves in optimized positioning in terms of their help when they're sending extra attention or holding extra attention to LeBron James in the post. And we see the benefits of just that here. Next up here, we're going to see another LeBron post up. This time it's Josh Okogie on him. He does a good job pushing that catch point out a little bit further than the initial post-up spot. Now we're going to see Yuta Watanabe as the low man. LeBron James sees that, and he also sees the way that Eric Gordon is super low in his rotation, automatically just kind of tipping their hand in terms of what they're going to be doing in terms of coverage. Yuta Watanabe is going to ultimately be late on this low rotation, and this is what can't happen. Now, obviously, he's 2'9", and he's trying not to get called for a 3-second violation, but you just have to be better with your anticipation and your setup, because at this point, as I still frame it, he's just way too late. In addition to being late, he's also not even going to get up a real contest on this layup attempt from LeBron James, and you just can't be caught in this no man's land situation, because when you do, the ball's going to swing around the court as LeBron is able, instead of being stopped at the basket or a charge being called, or deflection or anything like that to muck up and muddy up his pace and flow. They disengage. He's able to get this pass off to the corner, and that's a quick +1 to Anthony Davis wide open for the next pass, and he knocks that down. And then here we're going to see a little bit more of LeBron in the empty corner this time with Anthony Davis. So they like to use Anthony Davis playing off the pop. So this is a dummy pick and roll here, just getting to Anthony Davis on the pop. He's going to get to the second side, and they get their flow going. Now it's the entire side emptied on the floor, and it's going to be him and LeBron James getting into a handoff. Now, Okogie does a great job navigating it initially and making LeBron pick up his dribble. And then he's going to do an even better job here navigating over the second one and allowing for Jusuf Nurkic to use his length in addition to Okogie's navigation of the screen, as they do a great job on the quote-unquote rescreen, getting into the late switch. All of that size directly involved in a pick and roll, in addition to, again, having Kevin Durant now be the low man, switching here, as you can see, with Grayson Allen. As you can see them swap positions and toggle defensive roles here, allowing for Kevin Durant to be that player that's playing in space off of this action. And that's going to allow for him to use his size again as a deterrent, and he's going to get a steal here. Being able to manipulate the defensive principles and responsibilities like that for Kevin Durant to be the player that's playing in space like that is going to be extremely important. And then here we're going to see them getting into little pistol action. The Suns do a good job of not switching it here with Bradley Beal, but we're going to pay attention even more as they get into the flare part of their pistol action. There's no screen to set for Anthony Davis because Bradley Beal is in extreme overload help. As you can see, Nurkic just kind of letting them know what's the next step in terms of their rotations. Bradley Beal just showing an extra body at LeBron James in the empty corner here on this post-up with Keita Diop, and the Suns doing a great job processing out of that. Bradley Beal does a good job not doing too much, just doing enough to get the ball out of his hands, rotating back out to who his man is in Cam Reddish. He's going to be above the break. On the catch, he's going to get into a little bit of a stampede. The pass is a little behind him, so that allows Bradley Beal the opportunity to get back into play. Suns going to get a stop. And then here, one more rep. Looking at Anthony Davis now, it's going to be them getting into their Iverson action. So we see Cam Reddish going over the screens and horns. And then we're going to see Anthony Davis get an elbow cross screen into the empty side now. He's going to get this catch. And now look at the navigation from Nurkic. Nets him behind the play some. But there's also no activity from Grayson Allen here to aid his big man in navigating the screen. So Anthony Davis is going to come off of this scot-free. And he's going to be able to get a catch and immediately turn the corner. And at this point, you're at his mercy. They're going to call a foul. He's going to get a basket or both. And we're going to see Nurkic not be able to regain leverage. Doesn't pick up a foul here, but Anthony Davis is able to get up an easy, uncontested layup, which is unacceptable, especially considering where he started this play at. And then the Lakers, not unlike the Suns, find something that worked and they get right back to it on the very next possession. This time, look at the difference. Nurkic is going under the screen, and that's going to be something as a prelude to things that they're doing with Anthony Davis in the next couple of clips. But he's going to elect to go under the screen this time. That's going to be accompanied by a nice little nudge here, a nice little chuck off the ball here from Grayson Allen to just muddy up the flow and process for Anthony Davis as he flows over the screens. And then look at, in addition to that, we get Nurkic getting back to the body, getting a push on, a legal push on, that's going to push up this catch point for Davis. And now he's able to work with a much cleaner opportunity in terms of where he's setting up shop for this defensive possession. And then ultimately that's going to net the Suns a stop as he plays in space. Really solid there from Nurkic on that second rep. And then here, the prelude that I spoke to, the Lakers love to get into these thunder screens where they have a small guard setting a screen, basically a wide pin for Anthony Davis to get a catch around the elbow or in the paint. And what the Suns have been doing on this specific action, which is very astute from them, is just ducking under it and just meeting him at the catch point on the other side of the screen. So as we see them loading up for the Thunder screen here, always taking place in an empty corner, we see Nurkic just playing under that screen here from Austin Reeves. Ultimately, it's going to end up going back out to the perimeter because Nurkic is not conceding to the screen and trying to navigate over. And now the Lakers are forced to play in the next action, and the Suns are going to get a stop there with solid point of attack navigation there from Jordan Goodwin. Next, we're going to see the Thunder screen again, this time with Drew Eubanks. And look at how Eubanks on this still frame is ducking all the way under the screen and meeting Anthony Davis at the catch point on the other side of it. And then we're going to see him playing in isolation here. Gets a little bit of help here from Yuta Watanabe. But Eubanks is ultimately going to be solid and get another stop in isolation. And now, because the Suns have been going under that screen so continuously and so quickly, in the still frame, you can see Nurkic under the screen here from Vincent. And that's accompanied by Grayson Allen waiting for Anthony Davis on the top side, trying to chuck again like we talked about on the Iverson into the elbow action and empty isolation for Anthony Davis. Here we see a little bit more of that in a different context here, and Davis elects to pop. This is what you want from the Lakers. Anthony Davis popping on these screens instead of getting these catches around the elbow and working the isolation closer to the basket. Instead of him operating in the mid-range, he's here outside the three-point line. Nurkic gets up a smart contest, just giving him something to think about, but not conceding enough, and that's a miss and win for the Suns. And then here it was going to be Anthony Davis just generally working in the post. And I like this rep because the Suns' activity, as you can see here, on the flight of the pass, Jordan Goodwin again flying, not just passively 2-9ing, he's flying to put pressure on the ball on this double team. And ultimately, again, like we talked about earlier in this film session, having Kevin Durant be that player that's playing with length and athleticism on the second side to take that first pass. It's just truly invaluable having somebody with that much of a wingspan to be able to put in that layer of your defense. And we're going to see him behind schedule as they get into this cut from Reddish to follow the double team from Goodwin. But again, because of his length, KD is able to get back into that play, get a deflection. The Suns get another deflection. Ultimately, that nets them an extra possession. And then here, just kind of looking at some of their pick and roll defense, the Lakers love to get into these empty corner pick and rolls, whether that be via pistol action or just layer within their half-court offense with D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis specifically. And these two, they went to this about 5 or 6 separate times within their first 7 or 8 possessions of that second game against the Suns. And this is something that the Suns have to be better at defending. Here is Grayson Allen and Nurkic, and their process in terms of where they were then, early in November versus where they are now, and late November/early December is so much cleaner, so much better. Nurkic is better in his drop, and the Suns are better in general at the point of attack, being directional and being physical, steering the wheel within that defensive coverage. Here we see them off, and then it's just going to be too much space conceded as we see D'Lo get off of this screen, and he's going to work to the mesh point, and Nurkic gives a little bit of a bluff in addition to Grayson Allen not being fully connected. Ultimately, that's going to concede space, and this is going to be an easy warm-up jumper early in the game for D'Angelo Russell, and that's just unacceptable, obviously. So kind of fast forward here, this time we're going to see another empty corner pick and roll. This time it's going to be with Grayson Allen on Austin Reeves, and it's going to be with Anthony Davis setting the screen. And here we're just going to see it done the right way. This is what I'm talking about with steering the wheel. He's not just passively sending him towards the baseline. He's not just influencing him towards the baseline. He's attached to the hip, and like I mentioned, being directional in pick and roll, he's steering the wheel in ice coverage, or weak coverage right here, rather. And he's getting into weak, keeps him away from getting the Nurkic fully, and then gets up a solid rear view contest here. And that's ultimately going to be a stop, and the Suns are going to flow in the offense. And then here we're going to see with Okogie this time on D'Angelo Russell. It's another empty corner pick and roll. And we're going to see Okogie do a solid job with his navigation. But in addition to that, we're going to see Jordan Goodwin. Like I mentioned a couple times before, Goodwin is going to be a plus player for this team in this game, specifically on the defensive side, just being there early. And Nurkic is going to end up picking up a foul here. But this has to be better from Nurkic specifically because he knows he already has low help coming from Jordan Goodwin. So just being solid, letting him do his job and not jumping up here, trying to contest, just staying solid, staying low, and allowing for the double team and the dust to settle on that rather than picking up a foul. This is the part of the process that he has to be just generally better at. And like I mentioned in a couple plays before, he's been better at that of late versus where he was then when this game occurred as a second game in the season right here. Nonetheless, it's just something to note. And then here is going to be a more steering of the wheel from Grayson Allen at the point of attack with Austin Reeves. It's not in an empty corner this time, but we're just going to see him do a good job of navigating the screen. And this is where the issues were coming earlier in the season, where they've kind of turned a corner and been better with it now with Nurkic. Grayson Allen does a solid job being directional, keeping him to his weak hand, forcing him to come off to his weak hand, and not allowing for him to get into a snake dribble, as he does a solid job of navigating the screen. Now, this is the point where the Suns now are getting into this late switch somewhat seamlessly, but early in the season they weren't. And this is what I talked about in a film session I did earlier this season. Nurkic is going to get blown by, and this is just a point of growth that they've had. They got to make sure they keep their foot on the gas in terms of that and not reverting back to what we saw from them earlier in the season in this context. And then here we're going to see a little bit more of the same. This time it's going to be 2 possessions where he gets burned, Nurkic, but it's also going to be even more so on the point of attack defense from Eric Gordon. Now, obviously, before anything else, you don't want Eric Gordon to be the one that's defending LeBron James here, even if it is in pick and roll, because LeBron is not going to he's not going to worry much about the person that's guarding him if it's Eric Gordon. If it's Keita Diop, if it's Josh Okogie, they can be more physical, they're bigger in stature, and they can just generally dictate a little bit more. Eric Gordon's being extremely reactive here. LeBron comes off of the screen, and by the time he gets one dribble past it, he's not even thinking about Eric Gordon anymore. He already has leverage. He's getting downhill, and Nurkic is going to get beat in addition to the point of attack not being there. And this is just a compound of things that were going on earlier that can't happen. This time it's going to be Jordan Goodwin here. He does a good job navigating the screen early. They get into the rescreen, and Nurkic is going to end up getting beat here as LeBron James crosses back over. And this is, again, just... it's tough because obviously it's LeBron, an all-time great, but you just gotta get the job done in these scenarios. Nurkic has definitely been doing so of late, and this is exactly why he's gonna be an X factor for me in this game tonight. And speaking to that, looking at Nurkic, he has the win on the margins in all of his minutes spent on the floor with Anthony Davis. He's not the better player, obviously. He's not even going to be featured better in terms of usage. So how can he win that matchup when he's not getting the ball in his hands and he can't necessarily guard him consistently? It's winning on the margins, winning the effort plays, and specifically on the glass. The Suns are averaging 10 offensive rebounds a game against the Lakers this season, and Nurkic has been a big part of that. And as we can see here on the shot from Kevin Durant, Nurkic is doing just that. Being the better player on the margins, spinning into position on the box out here, getting on the boards, and then ultimately letting the Suns an extra opportunity on the three-pointer. And these second-chance opportunities are something that the Lakers have struggled with all season, something that the Suns have been extremely good with of late. So seeing who can win that specific context and dynamic of the game is going to be important. And that's specifically how Nurkic can keep himself most effective in operating against Anthony Davis and at least neutralizing those minutes, if not outright winning them with Anthony Davis. And here's another opportunity on the margins where he can beat Anthony Davis, and that's just out-efforting him. In addition to the glass, in transition, he's sprinting the floor, and look at the gravity that ultimately his rim run here is going to create. If Anthony Davis was attached to his hip, LeBron James and Taurean Prince wouldn't have to jump over the help line, as we can see here, the gravity that comes with it. But because Davis is so far behind the play, both Prince and LeBron jump at least a step over the help line. That's going to end up resulting in a quick skip pass and astute skip pass here from Grayson Allen. Another one to Kevin Durant. And because Taurean Prince had to jump across the help line initially, that's going to create a closeout here for Kevin Durant to attack. And then that's going to be LeBron James on the strong side block, already out of position off of the corner. He's just going to ultimately engage him enough, kick it to Keita Diop, and that's a wide open three. Nurkic winning on the margins in this matchup with Kevin Durant is going to be as important as anything else that he's bringing to the floor outside of his screening. And lastly, just looking at Nurkic and how he's featured, being able to get into these opportunities where obviously Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to get their extra attention. Being able to see him do what he's been doing a lot lately, just playing off of that advantage inside of it and inverting the offense and playmaking out of that. So you see, obviously, Kevin Durant holding two to the ball for a moment. He gets off it quick. Nurkic gets into his role. That's going to automatically, because of the activity at the level of the screen, pull over the low man while his man recovers. And that's going to end up seeing two to Nurkic. And him getting off of that quickly and playmaking off of an astute cut in addition to everything else from Keita Diop. This is a flow and space the Suns need to be in this game tonight. And I see no reason why they can't. Because just seeing all of these things kind of adding up in layers and ultimately seeing how effective they can be with taking care of the ball and knocking down their three-point shots in addition to the defense is going to be what's kind of standing out most to me for the Suns in this game.